essentially public places. So we're just really glad to have Kate and Steph here this morning to share a little bit. And thank you all very much for being here.
Thanks for having us. And I will share my screen here. And are you able to see my screen and hear me okay? Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having us this morning. With the last few years of COVID, we haven't had a chance as much to meet with you all and talk about Colorado downtown streets. So we're really happy to have this opportunity today. My name is Kate Townley, and I'm joined today with Steph Leonard. And we both work at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment as built environment specialists. This morning, we'll be presenting on Colorado downtown streets, and that's a resource CDOT, DOLA, and CDPHE came together and created a few years ago, and then we've updated over time, and hopefully we are going to see it updated again soon. So today's presentation, it's going to be a mix of us talking as well as asking you questions. We're going to use the polling feature in Zoom, as well as feel free to add questions in the chat, and we may be asking some open-ended questions a little bit later and ask you to come off mute and talk with us. So I think Steph will be able to help me monitor the chat, and she's also going to be adding some links into the chat as we're presenting. And of course, since we work at the health department and promote physical activity, we encourage you anytime during the presentation to get up and stretch and move around because we don't always have too many opportunities to do that during the day. So we're going to start off here first with a poll. Steph, do you want to help me talk through this one?
Yes. Sorry, I had to find all of my buttons. Good morning, everyone. Just as like a quick start out, figure out who's in the room and what your communities are like. We wanted to start off with a poll asking, is your Colorado Main Street a state highway? The options are yes, no, but a state highway intersects our main street, and then no as well. And I believe Tracy should be able to see the progress of the polls. So Tracy, I'll let you know, or let us know when you think the poll's ready to share.
Got to remember to unmute. I think I probably got all of the respondents who are with our communities. So I'm going to end the poll, and it's actually quite interesting. It's a fairly even split.
All right, so it looks like almost half have a main street that is also a Colorado state highway. And then seems like there's quite a significant connection with main streets and state highways, with only 30% reporting no, there's not a state highway connection. So that's really useful, especially given the context of the guide, that a lot of the materials are targeted towards highways as main streets, but it's not just applicable to main streets that are state highways. So I'll pass it back to Kate now.
Thank you, Steph. Trying to get all my buttons figured out too. So I think I heard Larry say on the webinar last week that the old ways are often the best ways. And what I love about this photo from back in the day is how Main Street is really bustling with activity. People are out walking, they're conducting their daily business, and they're connecting with each other. It's really a place to go to be part of the community. Over time, our streets have really evolved, and we started prioritizing the movement of cars to get places quickly and to really be able to park right out in front. And eventually, we stopped making room for people, which really transformed both the physical and the social infrastructure of our communities. With this change, our DOTs, or our Department of Transportations, they really focused on prioritizing cars and about how they could build transportation to quickly move cars through a community. But this focus on really the throughput of traffic was not serving all the needs of our communities. So we were hearing from communities that with all of the traffic on Main Street, it was making it nearly impossible to create that inviting space. So our agencies wanted to explore how we could shift from building transportation through a community to building community through transportation assets. So way back in 2016 BC, before COVID, DOLA, CDPHE, and CDOT attended a training called the Walkability Action Institute. And from there, we decided to collaborate and really address the question of how do we think state highways could be more assets rather than barriers in our communities, or how we could think about our streets as more assets than barriers. So we partnered with Community Builders. I'm sure that's an organization many of you have worked with. And we wanted to create an easy to digest resource to help communities and CDOT work together more effectively. This is really a communication resource to support effective planning and decision-making in order to create better streets and to help communities implement better streetscapes. With that, we have our next poll.
All right, so this one has a few more options in it. So we want to know what your experience is using the Colorado Downtown Streets Guide. So the options are, well, have you used it is the question. Yes, I've used it to inform a project. Yes, and I've hosted a workshop. Yes, I used it for educational purposes. No, but I've heard of the guide. No, and I haven't heard of it. And then obviously another option, we probably didn't think of it all. So if others your answer, we'd love to just have you noted in the chat or share out verbally.
I see the answers coming in. This is fun. We need to use polls more often. And I love being the one to launch it because I get to see the response before everyone else. Okay, I think there might be a couple more that we would like to hear from here. Trying to subtract the number of people with the state because I'm assuming we're not responding. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end this now.
All right, so it looks like, oh, quick math. Looks like maybe 10, 20, 40%-ish of you, just under 40% have used the book before. So excited to hear that. And you've used it in a variety of purposes. About 30% have never used it, but have heard of it. So this will be a great way to get more information. And then about 30% as well have not heard of the book. So that's really helpful for us of knowing, how much detail to go into to some of the features and provide an introduction to the guide. So thanks again all for participating in the poll, and I'll go ahead and pass it off to Kate.
Thank you, Steph. So I believe Steph added a link to the book in the chat. And so you're welcome to take a look at that and kind of follow along. But what I'll do is kind of run through some of the sections of the book. And yeah, it's good to know that not everyone is familiar with it. So it should be some new information for folks. So this is an overview of our table of contents. So we have why streets matter, and we do an overview of the benefits of great streets. We talk about what is a street. So these are the components and the design considerations. How to create great streets. So identifying barriers and potential solutions. And then implementation, which is really how to work with departments of transportation, local or state. It provides information on quick win projects and also potential funding sources for your streetscapes. So we'll begin with the benefits of great streets. And we outline in the book how streets really can support business and economic development, as well as shape and support quality development. And so that's kind of that public and private realm. So having the infrastructure in place. So when you have businesses coming in or people that want to do historic preservation on a building, that you have a great street to complement that development or those businesses. Great streets also promote safety, they increase accessibility, support a healthy environment, and improve public health. And since I'm from the health department, I'll dive into that one first. So our streets are really important because it's our daily experiences that really impact our health. And you may have heard that expression that your zip code matters more than your genetic code. And that's because the conditions in which we are born, we live, work, and play influences about 80% of our ability to be healthy. So it's important for our general health to create environments where it's easy to make healthy choices, to be able to engage in physical activity like walking, be able to eat healthy foods. And also what's really important is to be able to interact with our neighbors. So this particular graphic came out after we published the book, so it's not in there, but I think it's a great illustration of all the elements that come together to support a healthy community. So the gray boxes include the elements of healthy communities. And then if you look at the bottom of the graphic, you can see the various health benefits attributed to these elements. So all of the elements impact physical and mental health. And we really want a mix of all of these in our communities to ensure that people have the ability to live healthy lives. And main streets are a critical part of the safe and connected transportation system. And this has huge benefits. So I think one of the more obvious ones is improving physical activity. So having places where you can walk and bike safely, just as part of everyday life. Also promoting safety, and then to be able to get to our everyday destination. So have that ability to be able to access our jobs, our groceries, our healthcare. But a big, often overlooked benefit of streets is social connectedness. Because we work in physical activity, we often start our presentations about how sitting is the new smoking. But what we're finding is that social isolation really is. And that research is showing that social isolation is a greater detriment to health than obesity or smoking or high blood pressure. And by improving mobility opportunities and opportunities to socially interact, you can decrease social isolation. A few weeks ago, the US Surgeon General just released a report titled Our Epidemic of Loneliness and Social Isolation. And the report found that even before the COVID lockdowns that created more isolation, about half the US adults reported experiencing measurable levels of loneliness. So the first pillar in the Surgeon General's report calls out to strengthen social infrastructure in local communities. And one way they recommend doing this is through the design of the built environment to support social connection. And main streets are a great way to do this. You may be familiar with this from the National Main Streets as main streets and streets as places. And this really talks about how main streets are that place where people can come to connect, be exposed to each other, and really build that connection to your community through the civic pride, as well as just those places to come together for your daily needs. So moving beyond the health benefits, streets also support healthy environments. So what may seem like small things like street trees can have a significant health benefit. They can create a more comfortable environment for walking, as well as water quality improvement as well. Since we created the first edition of the book, we wanted to build more on the opportunity to add street trees and green infrastructure into our downtown streets. So we worked with a group of students to create a green infrastructure guide to downtown Colorado, and that provides a lot more details about how to work with CDOT or your local road and bridge and other organizations on creating opportunities for stormwater management within main streets. And it includes also some case studies like Ridgeway and how they've done this. We're hearing that CDOT is actually starting to take the resource that the students created, and they're going to create their own guide that will be an addendum to the Colorado Downtown Streets Guide. And they'll take the thick book that we created and make something much more digestible and easy to use. So we're excited to see that they're building on this work, and more information should be coming out about that update soon. Another benefit to Great Streets is safety. And this is huge. In 2022, just last year, we've had over 745 motor vehicle fatalities in Colorado. That's the most we've seen since 1981. So things are going in the wrong direction for motor vehicle safety. And speed was a factor in 46% of those fatalities. And then in addition to that, our motorcycle and pedestrian fatalities have been the highest since they've been since 1975. And also we've had over 87 pedestrians that have died from motor vehicle collisions. And those pedestrian fatalities have also been increasing. So in the book, we go over speed and safety and how designing streets for increased speed or the faster cars are going creates more likelihood that if you have a collision with a pedestrian, that would lead to a fatality. So there's that inverse relationship between speed and the likelihood of injury and fatality. In the book, we also talk about things like speed studies. Oftentimes we hear about the 85% rule. And so on our streets, if you say, oh, well, cars are moving too quickly, or they may come out and do a speed study and look at about how fast 85% of the cars are going. In some cases, this may lead to a change in the speed limits, but sometimes that if cars are continuously going over the speed limit, that may end up resulting in the Department of Transportation deciding they're going to increase the speed limit on your street in order to increase safety. And that's not the direction we want to go in. Let's see. Another piece that we talk about in the book is a driver's cone of vision. And this is how much a driver can see at different speeds. This is an example of what a driver can see at about 30 to 35 miles per hour. And I don't know if you can see the person on the right. They're about to step into the crosswalk, and it's already outside of a driver's cone of vision at this speed. And that can create safety issues because within Colorado law, if that person were to step into the crosswalk, the driver is supposed to stop, and that doesn't give them much reaction time. We also talk about slower travel speeds. This is at 15 miles an hour, which is slower than typical, but what we wanted to illustrate is how much more of a cone of vision a driver has. And this really increases awareness of surroundings and the activities, the ability to stop and avoid collisions. And you can see in this image that you can see people on either side of the crosswalk that are now within the cone of vision. And the driver can also see the businesses and the storefronts and the amazing things that are happening on Main Street. So slowing speeds helps with safety, but it also can help with economic development and awareness of what is available on your main streets. And yeah, economic development is super important with streets, as well as how they shape the quality development and support private businesses and the communities that are coming in to do historic preservation. So people and businesses are really drawn to great places, and those are defined by great streets. You may have heard of the term sticky streets, and not when you're stepping on gum or things like that. But a sticky street is when you move along it, you're constantly enticed to slow down, to stop, to linger, and enjoy public life around you. So the activation of public spaces throughout Main Street signals to people and visitors that they're welcome and that they have a reason and to stay a while and they should linger within the street. So this stickiness is attractive, especially to people who want to start businesses along Main Street. So with that, I'm going to dive into more of our next chapter, which is what is a street? And our main streets is really the center of our activity that has to balance the needs of lots of users. In some cases, these are highways designed to move traffic. There are businesses who want people to slow down and get out of their cars and spend money. People want to be able to walk and bike around and gather safely. And so we have to be able to balance these within our streets. And I think Steph's going to include a link to one of the videos that we created as part of the Main Streets resources. And this one is on how to design in context. And there's, I think, a series of 4 videos that you can check out that go along with the book. So within the chapter on what is a street, we talk about how great streets are created when a variety of all of these design elements and functions work together to balance those diverse needs and sometimes competing needs within the street. So this chapter covers the concepts a community would need to consider to balance those diverse needs. And this includes things like context and making design decisions that are appropriate for the setting of the street and the surrounding land uses. As well as safety and including design elements that can minimize and prevent injuries. Function, which is balancing street capacity with other community values. This may be, an example of this may be designing for people for walking and biking, as well as commercial trucks that may need to be coming through your main street as well. And of course, it covers designing streets for placemaking. And placemaking is really about addressing how the street design can create a great place within the community. So the downtown feels welcoming when it's appealing, when it's appealing place to spend time. And people will linger in these places that are attractive and engaging to the senses. So for downtown, this means creating a place that has a strong sense of identity. And I know that's a lot of what you all work on, and creating interesting things to look at and comfortable surroundings. We also cover different streetscape components, and these are the design aspects that make up a street. We include this because this is the language our engineers and our design consultants often use. So to help make sure we're speaking the same language and talking about the same places as we're coming up with a vision for our streets. So the travelway, that's where the cars are going, and that's dedicated for the movement of vehicles. We have the furnishing zone areas of the right-of-way, and that's what provides a buffer between pedestrians and vehicles. We also have the pedestrian throughway zone, and that's basically the sidewalk. We have furnishing zones, and that's the area adjacent to the right-of-way and next to the private property line. So this may be where you have your patios or your sandwich signs and things like that. And and then we also have the private property area. So that encompasses the land and the buildings located right outside the public right-of-way, because that's what really shapes our streets. It frames our streets by creating that vertical design element. And all of these components are really important elements of each of our streets. And again, yeah, it's the language that our engineers often use. Within the book, we also include the streetscape components, the typical design elements that go within those component areas. And then we include details on the definition, the benefits, the application, and the design considerations for each streetscape component and design element. In the next part of the book, we talk about how to create great streets. And this chapter covers common goals for your downtown. In this example, the community's goal is that we want downtown to feel welcoming. So the book explores potential issues that may be creating a barrier to your downtown being welcoming. And some of these could be questions or comments that come up during a community engagement process. And then the book covers potential design elements to address barriers that you may be seeing on your main street. And then the next chapter is implementation. So this is a soup to nuts on how a community can implement changes to Main Street, from visioning and planning to funding projects. A really big component of this is creating a downtown vision. And that's a clear community-driven vision for the downtown, and it is necessary for the effective planning of streetscapes. So the book walks through the elements of a successful downtown vision and provides examples for that. And it also talks about how developing a vision and putting that into a downtown plan or a comprehensive plan is one of the most proactive actions a community can take for improving its downtown streetscape. The implementation chapter also includes information on how to work with CDOT to implement your vision. This includes information on CDOT's various planning processes, their timelines, and who to talk to for your region. It goes through information about how we have transportation, planning regions, there's regional plans, there's state plans, and there's different ways that you can get your project prioritized into those different levels of plans, which can help with obtaining funding. And I will say it also talks about the various timelines that you may see. Some things may be on a 10-year timeline, some things may be on a 4-year timeline. And so starting to think about that with your vision and what may be a realistic timeline for being able to obtain funding and implement projects. This chapter also includes information on funding. I will say, with infrastructure funding is kind of daunting to try and wrap our heads around, and it's constantly changing, especially lately. But the book includes a lot of the traditional funding sources, as well as some of the creative funding solutions you may be able to consider for your projects. And then the implementation chapter also includes information on quick win projects, and I am going to pass it over to Steph to talk more about that.
Thanks, Kate. Hello, everyone again. So quick win projects are kind of smaller scale projects. I'd say the majority of infrastructure improvements are often expensive and labor intensive. That's how this slide starts out. But they're often not the only or most effective way to bring energy and life into downtown streets and public spaces. So quick win projects are simple, short-term, and low-cost solutions that can have remarkable impacts on the shaping of neighborhoods and communities. Some benefits of quick wins include helping communities build momentum for a new policy, like testing out potential solutions on their streets, or getting ready for a design change, which we'll talk about in a couple slides, an example of that. But if you just check out here on this slide on the right, we see an example of a parklet in Louisville, as well as below. The Ridgeway uses planter boxes to bring a little life and create separation from the street and the sidewalk. So next slide. This slide provides a lot of information about the quick win process. If you'd like more information, this is on page 81 in the guide, but I'll just touch on a few of the core ingredients to creating a successful quick win process. Let's say the core component is making sure you have the right people on the team to address each of these different components down the way. So having a project leader that can keep the project moving on time, especially given that these projects are they inherently have a sense of urgency with short deadlines. You're typically working towards a goal that's, just a couple months down the line instead of, larger scale infrastructure projects, a year, multiple years. It's important to include representatives from agencies that have jurisdiction over the public domain. So that could be CDOT or your Public Works or a similar entity. And this helps ensure compliance with street guidelines and helps expedite the permitting process, which is usually almost always required unless the project leader is within that jurisdiction or the agency that has jurisdiction. Another of an outreach plan, and an effective outreach plan helps to educate the public about the project purpose and benefits, and ultimately helps improve project outcomes and helps projects get completed on time. And while quick wins are smaller scale, they still require components like funding strategies, maintenance plans, and performance tracking. So again, if you want more information about the details of the process, you can check out page 81 in the guide. So here's an example of quick win implementation in Ridgeway. And this is included in the guide. And we looked at it previously on the quick win slide. But so Ridgeway was planning to repave their streets. And so they installed cones and planters, kind of temporary features to help community members understand that street changes were coming and kind of get a feel for what that might look like. So on the left, you see the temporary, and on the right, you see the street repaved with bulb outs and kind of some slowing down traffic calming features. Next slide. And then this is an even later down the line process of Ridgeway. So you see all the streets are repaved, and you see these planters, street benches, other streetscape components were incorporated into the main street. So kind of seeing some of those elements being brought all the way through from the quick win step to the long-term implementation. So here we are at our final poll. And I did realize this one has a typo, but I'll walk through that when we get there. So Tracy, if you want to open up the poll. This is for us to understand your experience with quick win projects. So has your community implemented a quick win project? And if so, what type of project? And again, we listed different examples within here. But feel free if yours is not listed to put it in the chat or share verbally. So we have curb extensions, so parklets or boardwalks, creating a plaza, pedestrian refuge, islands and bulb outs, doing a pop-up event, traffic calming, bicycle lane, or bike amenities, street amenities like planters, benches, and shade. And then we have a few options for, no, we haven't implemented a quick win project, but we'd like to, or no, but maybe in the future. So we'll give you all a few more moments here to work on that.
Yes, I think this one is going to take a little bit more time, just with the length of options and number of options to choose from. So they are slowly coming in though.
It gave me enough time to figure out what the typo was that Steph was talking about because I couldn't see it.
Bicycle land on the slide, yeah. But it looks like Tracy caught it and fixed it in the poll. So thanks, Tracy. And Kate, I don't know if you see
editing.
Kate, I don't know if you see in the chat, there was a Green Infrastructure Guide sharing link error. I think it might be privileges. So if you could work on that real quick while folks are doing the poll.
We have about half of the people in the virtual room having responded already, and I'd like to shoot for about 18, I think, 18 or 20. So we'll wait a couple more seconds here, I think.
Hello, this is Stephanie. I don't see the poll.
Oh,
I mean, I see the question there, but not where I the action.
okay. Well, maybe I'll go ahead and close that poll then. And since you're unmuted already, Stephanie, maybe you could just talk about some of the things that Meeker has done.
We did the quick win with the bike racks and parklets. And so that kind of started some projects, and actually right now we're using some grant money to get accessories for our parklets.
Excellent, thank you. And anyone else can, if you weren't able to put your response into the survey, you can do it into chat or unmute. But in the meantime, I'll let Steph go over survey results.
I don't see the results.
That would be because I didn't share them.
Beautiful. So it looks like the majority of folks who have implemented quick win projects have added things like street amenities, so planters, benches, shade features, maybe shade trees. And then we have a good distribution between like curb extensions, pedestrian refuge. And then let's see, that'd be 30, about 50% also have not done quick win projects, but are interested in the future, or either the immediate or longer term future. So that's good to know. And we can, we're going to share some info about some of the funding that CDPHE has been able to provide, and we'd be happy to be contact in the future for those who are interested in quick win projects. So on that note, CDPHE has had the opportunity to fund some community-led quick win projects, and this is through support from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention State Physical Activity and Nutrition Program. So the projects that we have been able to fund previously were only up to $5,000. Now we're able to fund up to $10,000 through direct reimbursement. These are small scale or temporary projects that help promote physical activity, which is a chronic disease prevention strategy, as well as promoting momentum toward new or implementing existing long-term policy changes that help promote healthy built environments. So the quick win projects that we've been able to fund are definitely in alignment with Colorado Downtown Streets, but some projects have been a little more strictly like physical activity focused. And we actually do have some slides later on about Main Street's communities that have received quick win funding. And each of the communities represented in the slides are represented today. So I'll be calling on some of you to see if you're interested in sharing more. But next slide, Kate. So through this funding source, CDPHE has been able to commit funding to 43 community-based quick win projects over the last 4 years. Last April, we opened our 4th year of applications and received 63 applications requesting over $260,000 in funding when we had initially budgeted $30,000. And we were able to provide up to $5,000 for projects and individual projects. So we were overwhelmed in a good way by the response to the request for applications. And that really highlights the need for these types of funding opportunities. So internally, we were able to leverage additional funds from other programs, and we were able to fund 24 quick win projects throughout the state, again, including a few Main Streets. We can go on to the next slide. So I was going to start with a few examples of the Main Streets communities, and I thought Jillian was on the call today, Jillian Laycock. So I'll provide a little information about the town of Hugo's Quick Win project, but Jillian, feel free to hop in if you'd like to share anything else. So the town of Hugo designed a project to place 2 new ADA accessible picnic tables and 2 new benches at the Eastern Trails Depot, which is a park located on Hugo's Main Street and along Highway 40 and 287. The park includes a small playground and a rentable community building, and the town has a long-term plan to continue developing the community building into or parts of the community building into like a community gym, since there's no gym or recreation facilities within the town currently. So prior to this project, there was very little seating in this area, and those that did exist seem to be, over 2 decades old and in poor repair. So that created a barrier for folks who were traveling along the main street, as there weren't places to sit and rest while walking or biking. And so as a result, the town council has committed support to fundraising efforts to continue improving this location, and ideally the addition of a new jungle gym and play area that can serve a wider demographic of users in the future. And I believe that Hugo is pursuing additional funding for those types of amenities. But Jillian, if you have anything you'd like to add, feel free to come off mute.
Sure, I do apologize. I'm on a construction site. We're opening a swimming pool in Lyman on Saturday, so I'm trying to not have too much noise going on around. But this is a hugely exciting project, both with the support from CDPHE, and it's really helped us start the activation of a really underutilized space. We have a lot of travelers stop in this area, and it's really just been a problematic location on our Main Street district. And as a result of all of the work that's been put in, Colorado Main Street has actually also supported developing a park improvement master plan for this area. We recently went through a design project funded by the state to develop this project for revitalizing this whole area, including installing a dog park. So all of these new elements have added to that and will be utilized in all of the improvements that we're going to be making over the next 2 years. And everyone watch this space. So we're really excited and very grateful for the support. It's really activating what's believe it or not, the center of our Main Street district, because it kind of divides the town in half where this location is. So thank you.
Thank you, Jillian. I appreciate that additional context. So we can go on to the next slide, Kate. Next, we have the town of Meeker, and we already heard a little from Stephanie Cobalt earlier. So again, Stephanie, if you want to chime in, love to have any additional input or like how you see the project moving forward. But for context, the Meeker Chamber of Commerce and Meeker Main Street program received funds from CDPHE to purchase and install bike racks at 11 locations across 13 blocks within the town. And these partners have been collaborating to provide safer pedestrian and bike routes throughout town in alignment with a somewhat recently completed community master plan and mobility plan, which sets forth the long-term vision for driving, walking, and biking in the town. So they worked with CDOT to install a bike lane along State Highway 13, which runs through the town. And then they worked with a local welder who is a service-disabled veteran to fabricate the bike racks. So the bike racks ended up serving a dual purpose of being functional and distinctive, and having a local marker for the town. And the bike racks have also helped promote the bike lane and just bicycling as a form of transportation in Meeker. So Stephanie would love to hear any additional details or things you'd like to share about the project.
Okay, so yeah, originally we got 9 bike racks and there were more businesses that wanted more. So we got another grant and we installed 11 more. So now we have 20 bike racks and they're 4 different colors. And this June, we're gonna do an event with Bike to Work Day where we highlight where all the bike racks are and highlight that there's a bike lane on the Market Street and really push biking. So we're gonna use that day to do that. Also, additionally, the welder got another job to do bike racks in Rifle. So the whole project started this bigger kind of spread of biking and bike racks. So it was really great.
Awesome, that's beautiful. Thank you, Stephanie. So we'll go on to the next one. And I know Jeannie Caldwell is on from the town of Rangeley. So again, Jeannie, we'd love to have you jump in too. But for context, the town of Rangeley used quick win funding to support the installation of additional motion activated solar lights along the Kennedy Drive multi-use path, which is a paved path on the east end of Rangeley that connects to Colorado Northwest Community College and nearby subdivisions with Highway 64 and Main Street. So the town had initially received a Revitalizing Main Streets grant from CDOT to resurface the path in 2021 and used additional funding from other sources to install 6 solar lights throughout along the corridor there or along the path. And these lights are great because they're solar powered and motion activated, so it helps preserve the night sky or the views of the night sky, while also promoting activity-friendly travel along the path. So Jeannie, I'll open it up to you, see if you'd like to add anything else.
Sure, I would love to. So Kennedy Walking Path, as she mentioned, Colorado Northwestern Community College is at the top of the path, as well as the largest subdivision in Rangeley. So there was a lot of people that were looking to bike or to walk this path. And we got a lot of complaints because during the day it was fine, but in the winter when the days are shorter, especially, or in the summer when they're just enjoying being outdoors longer, there was no lighting on the path, and the path kind of winds around and there's areas that are dark and kind of just a darker area. So we were looking to put solar lights, which is a green energy, on the path to facilitate that. And I can tell you that it has increased the walking on that path tremendously. Any time of day or late evenings or night you go by, there's always someone on that path, whether it's walking or biking. And that connects that area to our downtown. So we've been fortunate to add those and appreciate the help.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeannie. And again, thanks, Jillian, Stephanie, and Jeannie. You know, you all know your communities much better than I do, so I appreciate you chiming in and adding those additional details. So we quickly just wanted to let you all know, I think Kate mentioned at the beginning as well, that CDOT plans to update Colorado Downtown Streets, the guide. And I think they're starting the process this year. So for those of you that have been able to use the guide, what would you like to see added or revised? And you're welcome to come off mute and share it with us out loud, share your experience with it, as well as if you just want to add a few notes in the chat. Jillian.
Hi, thanks for this opportunity. I would encourage everyone to advocate to CDOT to change their signage standards for our downtowns. It is a real challenge with the wayfinding projects that we all want to make happen for our communities when we have our main streets as highways. I did attend a CDOT meeting yesterday for our region and share this. They let me know they've heard this from other communities as well. But I think the more they can hear that message and the more that we can advocate for common sense approaches to wayfinding, in CDOT right of way, specifically in downtowns. However, they would need to designate that, or decide that it's a specific area of downtown. I've done several wayfinding projects, and it's been really difficult when your speed limit is 35 and then your letters have to be 4 inches high. If you're trying to call out a library, it ends up being like multi square foot sign size, and it's just not feasible. So I shared that yesterday, but if everyone else can advocate for that, it sounds like now is the time that CDOT is reviewing that, and with CDPHE's support, because wayfinding is such a big component of economic opportunity in our downtowns. The other thing that is challenging that I've found in our rural areas is some of the folks or some of the towns have taken away parking or diagonal parking spaces to put in like a median divider on the middle of the highway and things like that. Parking is certainly a challenge in Hugo, as well as Lyman and Kit Carson, and certainly the Central Eastern Plains communities that I support. And so, if there are ways that, I know CDOT advocates different approaches for road diets, but our areas are so heavy with trucking, those road diets are not necessarily a common sense fit. Getting the dog ear or the elephant ear, whatever, depending on which side of the pond you're on, you'll call it something different. But those are the two big things that we have challenges with. We're very grateful for our 35-mile-an-hour speed limit through our downtown. We certainly don't want to lose that. And whenever I've brought up doing adaptations or improvements, they've said, oh, well, we're going to do a traffic study and then it's going to go up to 45 miles an hour. So I've just kind of kept quiet because we don't want to lose that. But those are two big things with streetscaping, walkability, having spaces to sit, and also signage with the wayfinding. So thanks for this opportunity to share that.
Thank you for sharing your input. I was taking notes, and then this is all also recorded. So we'll be sure to convey that back through. And I saw Gail included in the chat that she's going to connect with CDOT and strengthen your voice as well. Add to it. Anyone else have any revisions or things they'd like to see added to the guide?
I know something that I was chatting with Kate and Steph with before everybody hopped on to the call, is that there is a small group of people working to encourage the incorporation of art into transportation infrastructure projects. So that's already something that's kind of along the same lines. And I know conversations that I've had with a couple of different people, maybe not quite as pressing as the wayfinding signage regulations, but sometimes the restrictions or barriers to including art with projects, particularly on a CDOT highway. And I know that in particular, the idea of kind of artistic crosswalks has come up, and just the problems that arise there might be another conversation that can be held, as long as it's adhering to visibility standards and accessibility standards. I think that that's something they could be more flexible on.
Thank you, Tracy. Any other thoughts? Right. Thank you for sharing that, Kate. So related to asphalt art, or, bringing art into transportation space, Bloomberg Institute has done a lot of research into the safety benefits of these types of art installations. And they also currently, I don't know if it's still open, but they did have funding available for this spring, at least, for art infrastructure projects on streets. So worth checking out all of those resources if you haven't read the reports yet or are interested in that funding. So I see we have just about 4 more minutes. So we want to just quickly, I know at the beginning, Tracy had mentioned that our next webinar will be about revitalizing main streets. So I will not belabor this one too much, but basically just that revitalizing main streets also is still really connected to the principles outlined in the Colorado Downtown Streets Guide. It scales up concepts like quick wins, and it's administered by CDOT through partnership with different state agencies. And it's really important because this is one of the only state dedicated funding opportunities for active transportation in Colorado. And NASA will provide more information at the end of June.
Gail had a question in the chat about when the new Downtown Streets book will be released. We don't have a timeline quite yet, but what we've heard is that CDOT may be looking at it more as like for complete streets in general. And that's something Complete Streets has come out a lot more of through the Federal Infrastructure Act. And so we haven't quite heard what the timeline is and what all will be included in the update, but I believe it's over this next year. So yeah, if there's ideas or things that you'd like to see, whether it's in an official update or other resources that our agencies can work together to create, we would love to hear about that at any time.
I see Jillian's hand up too
I think that might have been from
from earlier.
when she shared about the guide.
Do you guys know if you're going to keep it being an interactive resource, like an online where you kind of click on different aspects and it opens into videos and things like that?
I think that's a great idea. And I think that's a way that people can digest some of the information in smaller bits instead of, trying to go through the whole book. And I think that's something that we can relay as, a useful piece. And it was so nice to be able to work with community builders because they did a great job with putting together those videos. But I think ultimately, yeah, having something that's still accessible online and has multiple ways of learning in it as well.
Well, if there's nothing else from our attendees here, I would just like to once again thank Kate and Steph on behalf of Colorado Main Street and all of our Main Street communities for presenting today. It was wonderful. I absolutely adore this publication. I think it's one of the coolest technical publications like ever, at least that I have seen. We do have some hard copies in the office, so if you're ever in Denver, let us know. We can get that out to you or bring some to our summit or when we're on the road and try to get some more of these hard copies in people's hands as well. If that is, I think that's everything. And so once again, thanks everyone. Hope to see you at the end of June so you can learn a little bit more about maybe how to get some of these kind of projects funded with CDOT Revitalizing Main Street grants. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. See you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good day.